from Spain, Guillermo Fiam.
Welcome to Bahrain. We are ready for the GT4 International Cup main race. The grid has been formed based on the results of two one-hour-long qualifying races and the points that drivers have scored appropriate to their finishing positions, with 1 for a win and 20 points for 20th place added together with the fewest points at the front of the grid, gives us the lineup for this 60-minute GT4 International Cup main race, with mandatory pit stops between 25 and 35 minutes. The pit stop 95 seconds, line to line, pit in to pit out. GT4 has been the real success story in the last 2 or 3 years of GT racing. We've got 21 cars here, one of which sadly is a non-starter with a broken engine, but even so, we've had 2 great races thus far. And now this is the one they all want to win. This is the final, this is the main race, this is the International Cup, and the grid is formed, ready to go. David Addison and John Watson trackside, and looking down onto the grid, great variety amongst the different manufacturers represented. You've got Audi on pole position, but they're the McLaren of the British drivers, Matt Nicol-Jones and Finlay Hutchison. On the outside of row 1, Matt Nicol-Jones will start, having made his name really as a very successful Ginetta race winner and champion. But now as you see that rear mounted camera giving him the equivalent of the mirror view inside the car, Matt races and runs the Academy Motorsport team that operates this car, and he'll be one to watch in the first stint. It's going to be a rolling start, of course. It will be therefore one formation lap to get the warmth into the Pirelli tyres on which everybody runs. Pirelli, great supporters of GT racing, be it GT4 or GT3 for the FIA GT Nations Cup that runs here this weekend as well. And the Phoenix Racing Audi on pole position, to be started by Milan Donja, has won both of the qualifying races that we've had over the course of today. It's a really busy timetable for the teams, everything crammed into 2 days. Yesterday, free practice and the 2-part qualifying session. Today, 3 races. Woe betide you if you've got a problem. And the grid has taken a bit of sorting out, because if you were with us earlier on in the day, you might remember the excellent effort of Pierre Sonsinena and Pierre-Alexandre Jean in the first race in the Alpine. Well, the car has been excluded from that for a turbo boost infringement. Therefore, it cops a whole heap of points and will start this race 18th on the grid. But it's still going to be a car to watch, John Watson.
Well, a lot can change. We've now gone from daylight and the warmth of daylight into darkness. If you think back 24 hours when we had the first of these qualifying rounds, everybody found it challenging. Into turn 1, cooler tyres, lower tyre temperatures or tyre pressures, a cooler track surface, and called out pretty much the first 2 or 3 rows. Maybe the lesson has been learned. Maybe they understand you ain't going to have any success at all if you try to be a little bit over-ambitious with some of the manoeuvres. And, well, everybody knows it. Everybody's stated it. I am yet to be persuaded. We will see all the 21 cars, or 20 cars as it turns out, will make it cleanly through turn 1. I pray that we will, because I want to see a battle that is won as a consequence of racing and not of carnage.
I agree with that. As you look at the BMW there, that's going to be started by Gilles Vannelet, the 59-year-old French driver who has had a huge experience over the years. Now, also to make the point about GT4, there are 3 classes going on within this. You've got the Pro-Am, you've got the Am, and the Silver Cup. The Am is, as it says on the tin, 2 amateur drivers. Every car has 2 drivers. Pro-Am, you've got 1 gun for hire and 1 gentleman racer, although Gilles Vannelet, as the Am, is a very experienced and very accomplished one. And the Silver Cup is where you get your 2 young guns going together, quite often ex-single-seater racers, now looking at GT racing as a career. And Milan Donja, Nikolai Moller-Madsen are amongst them. Now here, Jérôme Poliquin, he's very much the pro, because having started in Formula Ford 1600 in the mid-1980s in the French Championship, Jérôme, who's now, 55 years of age, very accomplished driver, got to Formula 3000 level, but is the man that runs the ECA ASP, Autosport Promotion team, and he will go first in number 88 Mercedes. Their number 42 Audi, that lines up 6th on the grid from the Santilloc Junior team, and Fabien Michel will start in that car, and Greg Gilvey, who will take it over, is very rapid indeed. So for the slower drivers, in some cases, it's a bit of damage limitation in this. You don't want to fall too far back and give your gun driver too much work to do in the second stint.
No, and obviously tyres, we keep referring to tyres, they're a somewhat important part of any motor race, and the last set of brand new tyres that every team would have hopefully, the Pirelli tyre held back, will be set on these cars right now. So the arms, if you like to call them that, will maybe get the benefit of that additional grip when they hand over to the more professional drivers. Then they will be able to deal and work their way around it.
James Appleby and his guys there have seen themselves on the big screen. They're running the Aston Martin that's starting, as you can see, from 7th on the grid, the Generation AMR Super Racing entry, to be started by James Holder. Matt George will take over that car. James Appleby, who races as well as runs teams. His father Dave Appleby, very rapid rally driver of years past. And the Bahrain International Circuit, John, has been the great venue for GT4 and GT3 this weekend. And now, as you look at the circuit with these amazing floodlights on, in fact, some of the drivers say it's better to race in the dusk with the lights on than in the daylight because it's even brighter.
Well, they've got, I mean the vision, it is a nighttime event, but where is the night? I mean, the light, if you look from our commentary booth down across the pit lane, it is magical. We said it last night and we're saying it again tonight. It is an absolutely magical atmosphere. We
have 5 minutes to go before GT4 goes racing in the desert. And just to give you an idea of how magical it is, from the jet black sky, look down onto the pit straight, down at turn 1, you see what those floodlights can belt out. And it's the same in the paddock, the same in the car parks. To the right, as you look at it behind the grandstand, the Sakir Tower looms over turn 1. This is the turn 9-10 sequence, and just as they accelerate along that short straight, they go past another pit lane where in fact the GT4 cars are based, the Oasis pit lane as it's called, and the Bahrain International Circuit, probably the first really to become a facility with a race track, with a kart track, with manufacturer days, and of course purpose built. It hasn't evolved, it's purpose built. It is a mind-blowing facility, and you forget actually that it's quite established now. It opened for Grand Prix racing in 2004.
Yeah, and the condition of the circuit, bearing in mind is what in its 14th, 15th year, is remarkable. Everything about it, and there are certain areas within racetracks which do not normally always match up to muster. This place, absolutely spotless.
So we are ready for this GT4 International Cup main race. This is the one that all the accolades are on. The qualifying races have been good, but all they have served to do really is give us a grid for this race, and of course an idea of seeing who is quick, who is not so quick. Now this car is good to see on the grid. It's the KTM. Now you are ready to race. Enjoy your ride. Constantine Schurl, he will do the first stint. I say it's good to have it on the grid because you see the way the front bodywork is up now. That's how the driver gets in and out. You don't open a side door, you open the whole roof and front, and out you jump. But John, that happened at high speed in the previous race.
The reason it did is because one of those two front damper spring units, the one on the right hand side, there was a failure, and the spring, it's the damper shaft, appears to have broken, which allowed the spring to release, which probably sprung, and in that effect sprung open this unusual, you can't really call it a gullwing, I don't know what you want to call it, but the door mechanism got sprung open as the car was coming down into turn 14, and all of a sudden you're driving along. You can buy a convertible which can lower the hood up to 30 miles an hour or raise it up to 30 miles an hour. Well, this car was doing 130 miles an hour when the mechanism to release the door, for want of another word, popped up. Unusual.
Most extraordinary
First time
size
in my life I've ever seen anything like it. Just goes to prove you're never too old to learn.
There you go. Number 11 on the grid. A little bit further back is Lisette Brahms, who gives us a friendly wave. She shares that McLaren with her husband, Luke, and their son, Max, the man that organises the GT4 European Series. Very successful in this too, and also organises this GT4 International Cup. The door is closed. The grid is now being cleared. We've had the 1 minute board. And so the formation lap, it'll be the rolling start, as I mentioned earlier. The timing line, and therefore the start line, is coming out of the last corner, but they grid up way down the main straight. But the control line is as you come out of the last corner, to give everybody an opportunity to be on that grid. So the start line is quite a long way down the pits straight, but the timing starts as they come out of the last corner. So there is Constantine Schurl. Now, at the 1 minute board, you're meant to be off the grid. That mechanic is risking a penalty for that car because it's not started, and the beak is still up, so there's clearly a problem for Constantine Schurl. But, as I say, with the pace car moving away and the green lights on, that car faces a penalty. As there's a yellow flag being waved, but with the mechanic still on the grid, I would worry about that.
That's a no-no, because there's always a danger that a car directly behind one of the McLarens and the crossbow, the KTM is not moving, and having personnel on the track. Now, how they got it fired up, having personnel on the track, I've seen in the past injuries to those team workers, and that's, as you point out, David, going to probably be a no-no indeed, a major. Could be a drive-through penalty, could be a time penalty, could be something more severe. It might be a financial penalty, actually.
Indeed. I think that, like many of a certain generation, Dave Luckett at Zolder in 1981 in the Siegfried Sturr accident.
Absolutely, I was in that race.
I know, indeed. It was a pretty horrible thing to watch, never mind be in the same race. Anyway, the grid, thankfully, is away. Now, the KTM, by dint of being last away, should now start at the back of the grid. If you are last away, then you can't overtake to get your grid position back. If you're penultimate away, you can, but if every car has passed you, you should start at the back. So that's now where Constantin Schürrle should start. If you see the KTM weaving its way through, then that might be yet another drama against him. We shall see.
More pain to what will already be maybe a painful start, or certainly a warm-up that for that car, and that's disappointing indeed. There it is at the very tail of the field. He knows the rules and regulations.
Indeed, he's got it right. So let's quickly run through the grid. It's Milan Doncia starting on pole position alongside Matt Nicol-Jones. On the second row, you've got Michel Blanchiment and Gilles Vandelet. The third row is Jérôme Poliquin and Fabien Michel. Ahead of James Holder, and alongside him will be the Hong Kong driver Philippe Kaduri. On the fifth row of the grid for Phoenix Racing in the number 3 Audi, it is going to be Max Hesse. We've missed a few rows here. We'll come back to these few in a moment. Let's carry on to say that 10th on the grid is Peter Larson. 11th on the grid would have been Constantin Schürrle, but he will now start at the very back. But Piotr Chodzon is going to be 12th on the grid. 13th is Lizette Brahms. 14th Eric Behrens. 15th Darren Jurgensen. 16th Nicky Leutwiler. Then you get to these cars. 19th is the Bullet Racing car ahead of the CMR Alpine, Pierre-Alexandre Jean to go first, then David Touchebon's Alpine, and Andrew Daniel's very smart red Porsche Cayman at the very back of the grid, the one non-starter being the Ecris Motorsport BMW Team France car. So Constantin Schürrle starts at the back, out of position. We've still got 20 cars. It's a 1 hour race. There's a pit window between 25 and 35 minutes. They're all on Pirelli tyres. They're all GT4 cars. 3 categories: Silver Cup, Pro-Am and Am. We're good to go racing.
I think you're right. All we need to do now is get this race underway, see if everybody can be well behaved as they come up to take the start of the race. The lights will be red as they approach the start-finish line. They will then be, it'll go to green or they'll be turned off, and then it'll be, well, I was going to say all you know what let loose. Hopefully it will not be that. It will be a controlled start, because this is all that's occurred prior. The 2 events, 2 qualifying rounds prior to this have been all about getting your grid position. But this is what it's all about. They've worked hard to get here. They don't want to blow it by being, let's win the race in the first corner and then end up in the whatever, gravel or whatever.
Absolutely right. They've got to get around turn 1, which not everybody has achieved successfully on the opening lap of a race. Then as the field turns down through the last couple of corners, more concern within the KTM Crossbow camp, the Razoon Morven Racing squad that operates that car. A little bit nervous perhaps about, first of all, why it wouldn't fire up, secondly, whether there might be a repeat of that damper problem. That is Alain Adon, who is the race director, and when he is content, he will flick the switch to get the lights change from red, and we can go racing under the floodlights for the GT4 International Cup. First time the event has been run. It's been a big success thus far. Let's hope we are in for a good final race then to round out the GT4 activity at this Bapco Bahrain GT Festival for 2018, as the cars now then in the Noah's Ark side-by-side formation creep up towards the lights, which go to green. The race gets underway now, and who makes the best start? A good effort from the second row by Michel Blanchiment as they run down towards turn 1, side-by-side. On the inside line, Milan Doncia. On the outside line is Matt Nicol-Jones, who gets the McLaren into the lead as they dive down to the braking zone. On the inside line, then it's Matt Nicol-Jones, the British driver. Milan Doncia goes right round the outside of him and gets the lead, and also round the outside of both of them. Tries to go Gilles Vandelet, but he gets roughed up a little bit, runs out of road. So Doncia leads in the Audi. Second is Nicol-Jones in the McLaren, and already, look, Constantin Schürrle in the KTM. He's on the move, nipping ahead of Andrew Daniel's Porsche as they sprint up towards turn 4 for the first time.
Kind of looks like everybody got through turn 1, turn 3. Now the rush up into turn 4, and it's the Audi and the McLaren that are making that initial bit of a break. Here we are in the heart of the race. This is where, if trouble's going to arise, it will be on the entry into turn 4. Somebody slipping up the inside and getting tagged by a car coming the long way around the corner.
2 races, 2 tags at that corner for one of the Alpines, but everybody is through safely this time as there the Ginetta look at the inside of the KTM. That's got damage. That was started by Peter Larsson. Someone's taken a massive bite out of the back of that. Look at the state of it. We've only had 4 corners of the race effectively, and that Ginetta has been attacked by something with very sharp teeth.
Absolutely, and what it was done to the back of the car, let alone what it will have done to the rear diffuser, that car will suddenly have gone from a nicely balanced Ginetta to something that might handle not entirely as it said on the lid when you bought the car.
I'll argue with that then, as the field powers out of turn 10. There is Constantine Schürrle up the inside, little bits of Ginetta fly to the right. Nicky Leutwiler's Porsche is way out wide there, coming out of turn 10. This is 11, and it's nose to tail for the lead. Milan Doncia versus Matt Nicol-Jones. There, Jérôme Policon through on the inside line of Michel Blanchimont, the Mercedes ahead of the Audi. And then next up, number 3, Max Hesse in the bright yellow. Gets brighter under the floodlights, that yellow Audi, the car of Phoenix Racing. So, up towards the completion of lap 1. 1 or 2 little gaps are opening up already, but it's a pretty fierce fight for the race lead. Doncia and Nicol-Jones are together.
So, coming up through final turns, through turn 13, down the hill, down into 14. And the Dunlop Racing Milan, Phoenix Racing. Milan Doncia did what he did so successfully, but he's got different sort of pressure from the McLaren. The little Alpine, look at it, trying to get around. Number 3 Audi down into turn 14. That car, again, I'm just enthralled by what I see it do.
But that is Pierre-Alexandre Jean at the wheel, who wasn't that sparkling in his first stint within the second qualifying race, but he's on the money here. He's had a good lunch. They come over the timing line. Here are the race leaders. Doncia goes defensive to the outside line, goes MNJ. Matt Nicol-Jones uses all of the curb to try to get as much room as he can through turn 1. But Doncia in the Audi fends off the McLaren. Third at the moment is Gilles Vannelet. There is Max Hesse up on the inside line to try to go ahead of Michel Blanchimont. He does so for 5th place. And there, Constantine Schürrle in the KTM, number 13, nips up the inside of 72. That is Eric Behrens in the Mercedes. Leaders almost side by side. Doncia is still ahead, just.
Yeah, but he's having to be defensive. He's got to take the inside line to prevent the McLaren being able to get the run down. Let it on the inside. So it's Doncia from Matt Nicol-Jones. But of course, the gap, you can barely see it. It's 0.3 of a second when they came across the line. You can't really get an awful lot closer without doing damage to your own lap time. So the battle is on for sure. We're on the second flying lap of what is 1 hour race.
Into the pits has come Nicky Leutwiler's Porsche Cayman, and we have lost somewhere, number 42, Fabien Michel's Santa-Lock Audi has not come through on that first lap. There with damage on the front is Leutwiler. Do you reckon that's connected to the back of a Ginetta?
I think somebody in that team might be getting a bill from Ginetta for that damage. The Porsche, you can imagine how heavy that contact was. Must have been going into turn 1. He didn't catch it at the point at the back of turn 4. But certainly, whatever it is, damage to the Ginetta and heavy damage around the front of the Porsche. Where you've got those water radiators, you're always vulnerable. The nose on a Porsche, particularly with the configuration, the twin radiators they use.
The Porsche, of course, has already had to be repaired after an incident in the second qualifying race. There's a report that the Ginetta is losing fluid, potentially, a result of the contact. Here is a replay of the start, and also, not surprisingly, the KTM start procedure is under investigation.
Oh, that will be, but watch and see where the Ginetta is. Well, there is that's the KTM sitting there, and again, frightening to see one of the team members in the middle of the racetrack.
So that's why it's being looked at. I mean, there's no argument the guy was on the grid as the cars were being released. That should not have been the case. You get off the grid, and then if the car won't fire up, you go back to it if you're allowed by the marshals. However, Milan Doncia leads the way by 0.9 of a second here from Matt Nicol-Jones. These are both in the Silver Cup. Gilles Vannelet third in the BMW, leads Pro-Am. Fourth is Jérôme Policon, who's also in the Silver Cup. Fifth is where you find the very rapid Pierre-Alexandre Jean, and then sixth is Max Hesse, who's dropped back a little bit because there, look, the Alpine is ahead of him as they dive through turns 1 and 2. Whoops, arriving all crossed up, Philippe Cadouri, number 37 BMW, and that means that he loses out to Michel Blanchimont. He just dive-bombed him going into the corner, runs wide, and so Blanchimont goes back through.
Milan Doncia did the quickest lap of the race so far by about half a second over the second place McLaren, and that's just allowing him to break a little bit freer of the challenge from the McLaren. That was certainly in the opening 2 laps of this race. So Milan Doncia yet again looking to have that kind of, well, you might call it confidence, but certainly a really good race car, even in spite of having to carry the additional weight that the car was given when it turned up this morning, an extra 40 kilograms. It was
25,
and it's 25, and the McLaren lost 15. So there's a net overall of 40 kilogram differential, so the McLaren ought to be a little bit smarter on its feet. As the Alpine dives on the lovely little move, the Mercedes big runty V8 against the 4-cylinder inline turbo engine, but the Alpine so nimble, so easy on its tires, so light on its brakes, gets the deal done. Now looking at the back, the BMW just ahead.
I'd love to drive one of these Alpines on the road just to see what they're like, if anybody's listening.
You don't. You buy one.
You buy one and then you go drive it. It has been a great little car this weekend. It's won races in France, it's won races in the European Championship as well. You're on board with Jérôme Policon with the grunty Mercedes, but Policon then now down into 5th place at the expense of the Alpine. French driver behind the French car. Second gear, back on the power coming out of turn 13. Up through the gears now, over the brow.
You can see just how hard Policon's having to work behind the steering wheel, whereas the Alpine that got ahead of him, because it's that much lighter and much more nimble, it doesn't seem to need that level of input into the steering coming down.
That's Philippe Cadouri back ahead of Michel Blanchemin. He tried it at turn 1 and ran wide. He's done it at turn 14 and he's got a little bit wide and the Audi goes back through.
Yeah, it was almost a no-brainer. You could see what was happening. The BMW came into 14 a little bit too hard and couldn't get it slowed down, and that was well read. Looks to try and make the pass. The BMW's been quick in a straight line. They're going to get up alongside the Audi coming down into turn 1. Once he can plant the BMW there, he can take control. And he doesn't need to be quick from here forward. He just has to make sure he doesn't leave the opportunity for Audi to come back. That best chance will be once again up into turn 4.
So the race leaders are on lap 4. Milan Doncia now just edging away a little bit from Matt Nicol-Jones. 1.3 seconds that gap has gone up to. And an absolute best first sector as the tyres come up to temperature and pressure and the fuel load starts to lighten for Milan Doncia. Tell you what, that Ginetta's a strong old beast, because despite the rear damage, look, it is still going and it's in the battle there up on the inside line. Goes Peter Larson against Eric Behrens in the Mercedes. Ahead of the pair of them is Stephen Patrick's Mercedes as well. So this is 11th, 12th and 13th. And the Ginetta, still disassembling itself, is being driven very, very feistily. It's just gained a place. Peter Larson is now ahead of Eric Behrens.
You know, one of the ironies of having car damage, particularly around the rear diffuser, you might think it's going to lose overall downforce. It may lose overall downforce, but it may actually have a better balance. It might give a little bit more bite in the front because the rear is not working so efficiently. Or was that a tag from the Ginetta, or certainly the Mercedes stepped absolutely from left over to right to imagine that there maybe would have been contact.
This is Peter Larson's chance. Look, drags the car out of turn 10 up the inside. Look at Andrew Danilov in the red Porsche as well, because he's going to have a go. Danilov on the inside line there against Eric Behrens. The Ginetta of Peter Larson goes ahead of the Mercedes of Stephen Patrick. The Porsche's up the inside line as well. Patrick tries to fight back in the Bullet Racing Mercedes. The team is named after the movie, of which Stephen Patrick is a big fan, in case you're wondering. And out of turn 11 they go. But look, Peter Larson now has got away.
Yes, I mean, the car, again, in a lap is going to be quicker. The difficulty was getting past some of the bigger, maybe the more powerful competition around it, but looking down into turn 14, the Alpine up certainly in 4th place, putting pressure on Gilles Villeneuve's BMW, and there he is right under the rear wing. And imagine when they come into the braking zone, the lighter Alpine may have an advantage when it comes to sticking it down the inside. Against, well, wait. No, too far back.
Yeah, and look behind, because Max Hesser is having a go at Jérôme Policon as they dive into turn 1. On the outside line is the yellow Audi. Jérôme Policon is able to stay ahead, and at the risk of saying, I told you so, the KTM is being given a drive-through penalty because of the mechanic being on the grid after the 1 minute board.
It was inevitable. You don't leave personnel on the pit, on the racetrack after that 1 minute board has been signed. Oh, up the inside, a little bit of hip on the shoulder. And looks like the Hesse number 3 Audi has found a way around the 88 Mercedes, so that was a good pass, well judged and well executed.
So the Audi Max Hesse goes through. That's 5th now that he's gained. Behind them in 7th place is Philippe Cadouri, who's got better and better as the weekend has gone on. The Hong Kong driver, he's not done that much racing actually up till GT4 this weekend. He's doing a really good job. So here, Jérôme Policon out of turn 8 with that, what do you call it? It's not a steering wheel as such, there's no top or bottom to it. Is that a controller or a joystick? What do I call it?
A tiller.
A tiller, fair enough. He's making waves at the moment, is Jérôme.
Look at the amount of, look how much steering lock he's got to put on the Mercedes to get it to turn in. Down to first gear as well. Turn into turn 10. That's a lot of lock. So whether he's maybe got a slight imbalance in the chassis or whatever he's going to do, he's certainly not going to do those left, right, front a lot of good by putting so much steering lock on. Again, into turn 11, having to put a lot of lock to get the car to turn.
And the Audi is getting away, even though you think the Mercedes should have the advantage in a straight line. That gap was widening, having gone through. Max Hassan was pulling away. That's your leader, that's Milan Doncia, the Dutch driver, sharing with the Dane Nicolai Müller-Madsen. They're the European GT4 champions this year in the Silver Cup. Having had a very good season, coming now down towards the right-hand turn 14. Matt Nicol-Jones chasing on behind him. And Matt, who's had a slightly frustrating season, now in a car and with a co-driver that is going to help improve what results he can get, comes over the timing line.
It was 2.2 seconds, the last lap 3.5 now. Part of the reason for that is the last lap by Milan Doncia was a 1:13.669, fastest lap I think of the race, certainly of this particular lap, certainly very quick indeed. There's the KTM crossbow coming in to serve its penalty for an infringement on the grid. It actually got up to 9th place, which I can understand they'll be disappointed, but the rules are the rules.
Indeed. So the KTM crossbow darts into the pit lane. The Mercedes are side by side here, where you've got Stephen Patrick about to lose out to Eric Behrens because he's on the inside line. Am goes ahead of Pro-Am, Behrens 72. Stephen Patrick in number 33 drops back behind him. KTM through the pit lane, and there number 50, the Maserati, just underlining the variety that we have. That's Piotr Chodzin in the AM class. The KTM's about to rejoin, and there's a yellow flag up at turn 12, turn 13. So there's been an incident out at the back part of the circuit.
Maybe bodywork, maybe some there. Well, there's the Porsche. It stopped out. Oh, what's it doing out there? That's on the, is that the exit of turn 13? I think it is.
Yeah,
on the run down, you can see just before the 100-meter sign. And the car stuck there is just literally off the line that everybody will be following when they come down to take turn 14.
So the race director will have a look and see whether the car can be moved, whether it's going to fire up, or whether he needs to call for a race neutralisation to get that out of the way. The yellow flag is shown. This is the race leader who, in the last couple of laps, has really scarpered. Milan Doncia now is 3.5 seconds to the good over Matt Nicol-Jones. Up into third place is the Alpine, which is closing on the second placed McLaren now.
I suppose, apart from the man behind the wheel, the principal reason that the number 5 Phoenix Racing Audi is able to stretch its legs and pull away is because, to me, that car looks about as well balanced a race car as you could wish to have. It's not got excessive understeer, it hasn't got any oversteer, it's got balance. And that wave yellow flag coming out of turn 13 to make sure nobody passes in that zone. If you do, you have to wait until you get to the next green flag, which will then allow you to overtake. But the number 5 Audi certainly looks to me to be as well a balanced car of any that are running right now.
Go along with that, certainly coming out of turn 14. The lead car then goes through Milan Doncia's Audi ahead of Matt Nicol-Jones. That gap going up and up and up all the time. 4.273 seconds now. In third place is the Alpine of Pierre-Alexandre Jean. In fourth is Gilles Vannelet. There, the BMW. Fifth, the yellow Audi, Max Hesser. In sixth place is Jerome Policon, who's coming back in him, isn't he? That gap 7/10 of a second as they came over the timing line. So Policon has not given up in his quest to retake that place.
No, he's not. And maybe the track, maybe the car's coming more towards him again. Just keep an eye on the amount of steering inputs that Policon is having to use to get the Mercedes to respond in the way that he needs it to do. Also, in third place, the little Alpine, down to 4.9 seconds behind second place McLaren of Matt Nicol-Jones. So that little Alpine quietly just closing on potentially a second place.
That's right. So it's going strongly, and again the fascination in the second stint, different co-drivers, of course, different drivers to get into the car, so different speeds, different pace, different results. Some cars will rise, some will fall. There in the AM category is Piotr Chodzin fighting back, but he's behind now the American driver Darren Jorgensen. In the Mark cars, the Australian team run BMW. Behind the pair of them, you've got Lisette Brahms in the McLaren, Konstantin Schürrle in this snakes and ladders race. Start at the back and climb, going to drive through, drop back, climb again. 16th place for the KTM, next in the queue. So we've lost David Toucheman's Alpine yet again. We've lost with damage Nicky Leutwiler. Fabian Michel's Audi went missing on the first lap. And now Andrew Daniels' Porsche stranded to bring out the safety car. The safety car is deployed. They need to get the car out of the way. And the problem is, when the cars are all strung out, it's never really safe for the marshals to go near it. You need them in one long line to give them clear track space.
Yes, I mean, I don't know if there's an opening, an access opening on this back straight or the straight that leads down into turn 14, but the safety car is now on track and it will pick up the race leader, Milan Doncia, who's worked very hard to build up that 4.2 second lead, which is now going to be just evaporate away as everybody will then file into line directly behind the safety car. But in this situation, he's got the thing fired up. Well, the lights are on, looked like something was happening. Is the car going to move, or is it just my imagination?
Well, this is what happens. Marshall scarpers across the road in the background. Is it shedding bits?
Well, another Marshall Scrunter, when they're not meant to do that. They're meant to wait until, unless this is under yellow flag now.
Well, no, but that was the replay of the car pulling off, wasn't it? So curious as to what they were retrieving. Anyway, we are behind the safety car. Everybody will bunch up. So that 5.5 second cushion is now about to disappear.
He's managed to get the car rolling under its own steam.
Well, that's Murphy's Law. As soon as you shout for the safety car, the car moves. So I think now Alain Adon will wait for everybody to bunch up and then let them loose again.
So the car is going to be pushed. There is an access on that back straight to get the car pushed behind, so it'll be pushed behind. This ought to be a relatively short safety car intervention, as the Porsche will now go behind the safety barriers, and that's where it will remain until this race concludes. So disappointment yet again.
And that's
David.
Well, indeed, because it's a nice car, but also for the team. I mean, it's one of those that has made the furthest trek all the way from Canada.
Indeed, but what is going to be fun is now that everybody's nose to tail, we've got first, second, third in particular, which is where the focus is initially going to be, all bunched together, and who's going to get the jump on who? It will undoubtedly be Milan Duncia who will get the opportunity when the safety car comes in and the track goes green. But between the McLaren and the Alpine, and even back to Gilles Vannelet, it's up for grabs.
Now, Peter Larson in the Ginetta being encouraged to speed up and try and close up to the previous wave of cars, because you've kind of got the first 9 and then everybody else. So there they are, but the safety car crawling around because there's another wave of cars a long way back, and the idea is that they are meant to catch up, but the safety car is going to be in this lap. And so that really does compromise everybody in the second group of cars outside the top 9, because the Ginetta is going too slowly. It's not catching up because we're about to go racing.
I'll tell you, the safety car couldn't go an awful lot slower than it's going to enable that second train of cars to catch up. So it will undoubtedly... There it is. Now look, it's crawling around, going into turn 4 when the other cars are all the way around the back of the racetrack coming.
I think the message might have got through.
Might be a bit late, that's the trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, the idea is that when the safety car comes out, drivers go slowly, but there's slowly and too slowly. You're meant to be in one line behind the safety car. So Peter Larson could do with getting a bit of a wriggle on to catch up. He has got 5 kilometres worth of circuit, and they're coming out of
turn 10.
He is getting there.
Yeah, they're not even coming out of turn 8 yet, that second group of cars. There they are now. So they're probably the best part of maybe 500 metres or more behind, maybe double that, in fact.
I think he'll get there by the end of the lap, but there's concern for those teams behind. They don't want their race to be compromised. Peter Larson's car does look like it's picking up speed. Anyway.
Again, one of the benefits of doing so is these cars here running so slowly. Tire temperature, tire pressure, the usual suspects, all there we are. They're going to be, whereas the Ginetta backwards have been running that little bit quicker, so maybe been able to maintain a modicum of more temperature, more the pressure. So it's not going to change the overall scheme of things, but it might be a little bit more exciting when the track goes green with what's going to happen in the lead group of cars behind the safety car.
I agree with that, certainly, and we have got 40 minutes to go, which means we're about 5 minutes away from the pit window opening. And in most cases, you've got the slightly slower driver starting because you want your gun for hire, your real star turn, to be in that second stint, because if you have a late race safety car, then that quick driver could really haul you a good result. There's no benefit to having the quick driver go first and then a late race safety car compromise your chances. It does happen occasionally, but largely these days teams will always put the quicker driver in at the end.
So it looks like everybody's now managed to get into line, and it's all in the hands of Milan Duncia to make sure that they come down at an appropriate speed. He's slowing them all right down, trying to back them all up and force them into a situation. Now he's going to nail it. He's on, he's gone. Where is the McLaren? Where is the Alpine? Where is the BMW? So they're all pretty much equidistant. It's the number 3 Phoenix Racing Audi of Hassa who is right onto the gearbox of the number 39 BMW.
That's right, Max Hassa then is lining up to make a move down at the end of the pit straight then. This is the fastest part of the circuit. Absolutely foot buried to the boards, and then you've got to stand on the anchors. Hessa pulls out and has a look, thinks better of it. And in fact, in a straight line, Pierre-Alexandre Jean has dropped back ever so slightly from Matt Nicol-Jones. There is Peter Larsson's Ginetta, having just lost out. So Eric Behrens has gone through, and that puts Behrens in the Mercedes into the lead of the AM class, but he goes a little bit wider. Now round the outside goes Peter Larsson. The Ginetta is back into the lead of the AM Cup.
And he got the better run off turn one, slightly out of position. The Mercedes making that pass down the inside, had to slow right down to get the car to turn. And the Ginetta took advantage of it. The light and nimble Ginetta, rather than the more, I wouldn't say heavy, but the heavier Mercedes. And the consequence of trying to make a pass down the inside does have its downsides.
That's right. The Ginetta then rattles on. Look further back, you've got the Stephen Patrick Mercedes. That's a Pro-Am car that Andy Merrick will take over. Now here are the leaders, and Matt Nicol-Jones given this second opportunity to have a go at the race leader. Gilles Vanderlei, who takes some quirky lines in that car. He was way up on the curb there to try and maximise the amount of real estate available to him. He's got Max Hasser tucked up behind as well, so this is 4th and 5th. We're looking at both of the Pro-Am class. Hasser sharing with Gauchio Redest, and Matt Nicol-Jones giving Milan Doncia a much harder time now than he was a few laps back, because that gap had widened to 5.5 seconds.
Yeah, so the McLaren right on the tail of the lead Audi, but again behind them is that little pesky Alpine. Dropped back a little bit on the restart, didn't maybe quite do the start I anticipated, but now as all three cars, you can see the Alpine is closed right up again towards the back of the McLaren, so all of a sudden McLaren is the meat in this Audi Alpine sandwich, thinking forward, but at the same time we've got to be very wary indeed not to leave open an opportunity for Pierre-Alexandre Jean in the Alpine to slip up the inside.
Absolutely right. So we are currently on lap number 9. The race leader, Milan Doncia, is about to come through. And there is the Audi with second, Matt Nicol-Jones third, Pierre-Alexandre Jean staying with him. It's intriguing, isn't it, that despite that good restart, and despite the way the gap had been opening up earlier on, right now Milan Doncia is having to really defend. So Matt Nicol-Jones giving him a very hard time indeed as they dive down towards turn 1, and MNJ knows that if he makes a move for the lead and leaves the door open, Pierre-Alexandre Jean is going to be up and past him in a flash.
Correct, and that's what motor racing is all about. It's like a game of chess, but it's a high-speed game of chess. Whatever the move that you make, oh, that's messy down at turn 1.
That's expensive.
Oh, a bullet race, now that is that.
Well, that's broken suspension. You saw the suspension break, so Stephen Patrick couldn't turn. He hadn't. The car was going to take him that way across the front of the Maserati. So the initial contact did for the suspension, so that was always going to turn in that direction. The bite a bit, in a sense, there, because the Maserati was a casualty after the contact it had against the Mercedes.
Indeed, but looked to me like the Mercedes was still driving fairly strongly, albeit over to the right of the racetrack. But that is broken suspension. The Alpine now right on the tail of the second place Academy Motorsport. McLaren, whether it can do more than what it's currently doing. Let's watch again and see what this Maserati comes down the inside. Bang! Clips the right rear suspension. And then all of a sudden, is it out of control or is it the driver out of control?
See the rear wheels.
Yeah, it is, but I just wonder how much of that was the breakage and how much of it was, I'm not very happy about that in the least. Because it's still driving pretty hard there.
I'm sure the stewards will have a look. The chief steward, Greg Masters, former racer himself, so he'll be able to think about that from a driver's point of view. And Stephen Patrick was in the gravel in race 2. He got damage in race 3, and that denies, sadly, Andy Merrick a chance to get behind the wheel. Right, the lead situation is changing because the leader is getting away, because Milan Doncia's Audi now is pulling away. And that is because Matt Nicol-Jones is having to defend second place from Pierre-Alexandre Jean. So the gap widening 1 to 2. It has come down 2 to 3 as they drop into turn 14 up at the end of lap number 10.
Alpine has just got to be patient, sit behind the McLaren, get under the McLaren's rear wing, use the aero drag, the benefit of that sort of hole that the McLaren's punching in the air, to stay as close as he can. But the gap is just opening up too much in this part of the racetrack. The strength the Alpine has got is going to be in that middle sector where the car waved yellow flag still down at turn 1. So even if he had thought he might have an opportunity, he realised cannot do it under a waved yellow flag.
And that's a legacy of the Mercedes incident. Now here you've got James Holder under attack from what's left of Peter Larsson's Primus Racing Ginetta. The leader, remember, in the AM class. Peter Larsson. Behind him is his opposition, Eric Behrens. And then there's Konstantin Schürrle in the KTM. That's a Silver Cup car. So the third AM is where Darren Jorgensen next in the queue in that car that he shares with Brett Strom. 34 minutes to go. That means the pit window is now open, and in has come Lisette Brahms to give way to Hubby Luke. In is also Piotr Chodzen's now rather graunched Maserati. There it is, to give way to quicker brother Anthony. The Maserati has been a great sounding car. It's been a good charismatic addition to the grid this weekend, but Stephen Patrick may beg to differ now.
I think there's disappointment that move maybe decided or maybe believed to be a clumsy one, and the outcome of it is the 33 Mercedes-Benz is out. Nothing obvious on the front of the Maserati to indicate that there was damage, but nothing that's going to make it any difference to the car's performance.
Very frustrated, Piotr Chodze, because he's lost a lot of time. Here it is, up the inside, suspension damaged on the Mercedes, but Stephen Patrick accelerates, the car suddenly snaps sideways, so in fairness to him, he may have accelerated before he really appreciated the damage. However, the Maserati will be serving the mandatory pit stop. Maserati dealers, the Chodzens, and Piotr, not a happy man, walks away.
Well, maybe that car's got more than just a pit stop. But look, the Alpina's gone through into second place as they come out of turn 13. Hasn't done enough. He's going to stay in the middle of the track to stop the McLaren coming back. The danger is that he may not carry enough speed off turn 14 through the end part of 14 into 15. McLaren has been pretty good straight line speed, but again, the Alpine has got that corner exit performance.
That incident under investigation. There's a whole heap heading for the pit lane now as well, in fact. So in has come Gilles Vanelay in the 3Y Technology BMW, and also in is Jérôme Policon, and also in is Philippe Cadour. You can see there in the BMW. Down the pit lane they come. That's Thomas Drouet there. You can see in the ACA overalls, ready to take over from JP, Jérôme Policon.
And I reckon the next car in the pit lane will be what was the second place McLaren, now the third place McLaren. Because once the Alpina's got ahead, there's not a lot of points staying out. Come in, make your pit stop, do the driver change, and let's get back on the racetrack.
Stephen Palette there, ready to take over from Michel Blanchimont in the Santalok Audi. I just wonder whether when the Ginetta stops, there it is, the scrutineers might go and have a little look at that, because there's a lot of rear damage, as we've been saying.
Nothing else has appeared to fall off the car subsequent to the initial damage, so maybe they'll have a little cursory look. There's nothing really there that is structural, it's just bodywork. Bigger part of the structure would be in fact the rear diffuser, but since we've not seen anything else fall off, as we look back at the crossbow, and that's how it ended up on the racetrack in the final qualifying round before we got into the actual
into the final. That's 39 now taken over by the quicker driver Enzo Guibert. So the 23-year-old French driver, ex-ELMS racer, ex-Formula 4 racer, good to go. Stephen Palette in 41, sets off any moment behind Thomas Drouet, who goes down the pit road in the Mercedes, away, launches Stephen Palette. And so now, as the cars funnel out of the pit lane, interestingly, we've got one or two drivers doing personal best first sector times, even though there's been a yellow flag out there.
Some good pit work by a couple of the teams. Dan Wells, they get out just a second over the time. Likewise, Santalok Stephen Palette, 1 second. So good job in the pit lane, and further down, even with the little KTM crossbow, with all the travails that they've had to deal with, they've done also a good pit stop to bring that car. Where is the McLaren? What happens? Who comes into the pit lane?
As you say, Matt Nicol-Jones.
I'm a genius.
I've always been known. And Pierre-Alexandre Jean in the Alpine has done the absolute best in the last sector to put him here onto the back of the race leader. So the Alpine is absolutely charging now. Pierre-Alexandre Jean wriggling his way out of turn 3, and the gap 0.748 of a second.
And on the 12th lap, that little Alpine posted the fastest third sector time of the race to date.
So there Finlay Hutchison runs around the McLaren, ready to get on board.
Quick pressure check by the engineers just to make sure the tyres are running at the optimum pressures.
Pirelli rubber for everybody. And Pirelli, of course, having to come up with tyres that fit so many different types of car, different weights, different configurations as well. So it's a tough job, accomplished well by Pirelli, tyre division for GT racing. And there, Matt Nicol-Jones straps in Finlay Hutchison, make sure that the belts and the hands device are in the right place. Then he'll make sure that the intercom is plugged in, and to make sure that the netting goes across before he closes the door. So you have to know what you're doing, and it's a busy old process, this.
It is. Not really under pressure because the minimum pit stop time permitted is 95 seconds, so there's quite a lot of time to allow the two drivers to instigate a driver change and ensure that all the parts of that driver change have been complied with.
So this is 39 Enzo Guibert in early to take over that car from Gilles Vannelet. Away goes Finlay Hutchison, who has been mighty impressive this season in Europe and very impressive this weekend too. So the McLaren is still going to be well placed. Look, as it comes out of the pit lane, it will stay ahead of the BMW, keeps track position therefore.
Yes, and the gap roughly the same as it was prior to these two cars entering into the pit stops. So McLaren out will be in effect, I'm assuming, still in third position. And where is the battle for the lead? It was just 3/4 of a second between the Phoenix Racing and the CMR respective teams.
And also,
there we go, there we are. Look, the Alpine, look, and as the BMW bails first, so the Alpine actually takes over the lead of this race. Will do one more lap and it'll be in. And then it'll be, will this race be won yet again in the pit lane as we see the number 5 Audi make its way down the pit lane?
Is that the first time an Alpine has led a race? It's always been competitive, but I think this is the first time we've talked about one as the leading car. But Pierre-Alexandre Jean then stays out for another lap. The benefit of that is he's got a clear road ahead of him, so it's a kind of qualifying lap to try to eke out a tiny, tiny advantage over this car. Both the Phoenix Audis in at the same time, and also in there is Eric Berend. So now you've got the very rapid Nicolai Müller-Madsen taking over number 5. It's going to be Pierre Sonsinena who will take over the Alpine at the end of the next lap, and he has been an absolute gun this weekend as well.
I mean, it's all building up to a great final and second half, certainly. Just over halfway through this race, 27 minutes and half a minute remaining, as there is the McLaren back out on track, and the headlights, the flare of the headlights in Finlay Hutchinson behind the wheel, who, as you pointed out, David, has done a very impressive job indeed for that McLaren team.
So there you have the two Phoenix Racing Audis in the pit lane, ready to go. And Finlay Hutchinson presses on, so when everybody rejoins, we'll start to get a better idea of the race order, but we need to see where this car is going to be in relation to the McLaren. And it's going to stay ahead, but by what margin? Nicolai Müller-Madsen is making his way down the pit road there. Look, is Finlay Hutchinson. Wait to see the Audi ahead. You can't accelerate yet until you cross the white line. Now you can. And so away speeds Nicolai Müller-Madsen. He will stay ahead of Finlay Hutchinson, but Finlay is already up to a rhythm. Müller-Madsen has got to get on with this. He's got to work out what the track feels like, what the car feels like, and possibly defend all at the same time on this outlap.
Great teamwork by the two Phoenix Racing Audis, both spot on in terms of the minimum amount of time you're allowed, so they're back on track, and undoubtedly that will have helped their overall position.
Yeah.
Depends on what happens with the lead car,
which is in this time.
Yes, it's going to come in now. Here it is. The pit stop is going to be key. This will either make or break the chances of this car winning the final here in Bahrain.
Absolutely right. So there, Sonsinena ready to take over and getting himself all psyched up. Pierre-Alexandre Jean, another good stint, and disappointment for the sister car yet again, and another retirement. And down the pit road with the lights flashing as it puts on the pit lane speed limiter button is the Alpine, and it will stop on its marks, ready for the team to go to work. So round the back runs Pierre Sonsinena, out clambers Pierre-Alexandre Jean, and Sonsinena now on board.
Very good drive indeed to bring that little Alpine. Look at the maze of tubing that's been installed to give driver protection. And no doubt contributes to the car's overall, the rigidity of the car, which is sort of a vital aspect of any race car, making sure all the corners are strong enough, and that roll cage does it. It's pretty massive, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to clamber over it and get yourself comfy. Now, this is the car that it's fighting for the race lead. So, will the Alpine be ahead when it leaves the pits, or will that Audi? It was pretty touch and go between them, but it was a great pit stop from the Audi. Bang on, 1 minute and 35 seconds. The team saying not quite ready. Wait. Down to turn 14 comes Nicolai Müller-Madsen. Is the Alpine ready to go? It is, but the clock has not yet got to the requisite second. There'll be the countdown over the radio, and away goes now Pierre Sonsinena. It's 95 seconds line to line, 92, 93, 94, 95, mission accomplished. But is he going to be in the race lead?
Unbelievable, he is. He's going to retain the lead.
Just about.
Tuck into turn one, but he's done it. The team have done it as well.
So it is the Alpine on that one clear lap that has jumped ahead. Pierre Sonsinena leads here in Bahrain for the CMR team in the Alpine. Excellent job done. And Nicolai Müller-Madsen now has got a race on his hands.
Well, he also overran into turn one in his quest to try and get ahead of the Alpine as it made its way down the pit lane. He's got the advantage of having a set of tyres that they've done a flying lap. But look at that, you'd almost think they'd won the race.
Absolutely. Delight all round in the CMR Renault Alpine or Alpine A110 garage, because not only is Pierre-Alexandre Jean done a good stint, but Pierre Sonsinena leads now, but only just. Nicolai Müller-Madsen is there behind. Now look what's going on for third place. Finlay Hutchinson has got Enzo Guibert right up behind him, so we concentrated on the lead battle understandably, but there's another good fight for third. McLaren versus BMW, absolutely nose to tail. And fifth, look, the Mercedes of Thomas Drouet in the background of that next shot. Sixth, the next BMW, Dan Wells, the British driver.
Finlay Hutchinson getting a bit of a workover by the BMW behind. And in the meantime, Nicolai Müller-Madsen, he's been pushing hard, but the speed of the lead car, you can see the gap it's never actually reduced from the point where the Alpine rejoined the track. You would have thought maybe the Audi would have had the initial advantage, but not to be on this opening lap for the Alpine consolidating its advantage.
So wide goes Hutchinson up the curbs. In the McLaren, he's pushing to keep Guibert behind him. Just going back to that Stephen Patrick and Piotr Chodze accident at turn one, Maserati on Mercedes. That's going to be looked at the end of the race by the stewards. They've already called for the team managers to go and have a word. 22.5 minutes, give or take, remains. There's a driving standards flag now going out to car 51 for driving standards. Johan Rosen, the Ginetta driver, nose to tail for third. Hutchinson ahead of Guibert, who tries the outside line. Can he go all the way around the outside at turn 14? He thinks about it, he tries it, he commits, he runs off the road. Hutchinson doesn't give a great deal of space, and the McLaren stays ahead.
But the McLaren is struggling as well, coming out of turn 13. Just didn't have the bite. The BMW was all over on the exit, got up, tried to go down the inside into turn 14. McLaren just bullied it out once again. So Finlay Hutchinson has a struggle on his hands, and the struggle is not just the pace of the BMW behind. He's got a car, the balance of which probably isn't to his liking.
Bouncing over the curb, Enzo Guibert. Now there are the race leaders. The gap 1.3 seconds. Reinhard Koffler, incidentally, in the KTM has just done an absolute best middle sector. So again, you put a quick guy in a quick car, what do you expect? But Koffler getting the KTM up into 9th place. This is third. You're looking at Hutchinson ahead of Guibert. And of course, if Hutchinson has to defend for the remaining, what have we got, 21.5 minutes, he's only going to fall away from the two leaders.
Yeah, I mean, he's in a defence role right now rather than an attack role. Not unlike what we're seeing here.
Stephen Palet.
Yeah, good job to get through. Stephen Palet has been again one of the outstanding drivers in this GT4 event over the weekend. And his lap times at one point in one of the earlier rounds was so quick. Again, look at this, the BMW breathing. You couldn't get any closer to the back of the McLaren. Finlay Hutchinson really having to use all his racing guile. Runs very wide in turn 10. Back end gets away, and that's the story probably. He's been battling an oversteering car. Now BMW up alongside on the edge of the 10 will have the opportunity, the advantage coming into 11, but the McLaren is squeezing, trying to force the BMW wider and wider to the left. But the BMW's got the corner, and as long as he doesn't overrun on the exit, he will maintain that, which he's successfully achieved.
So Finlay Hutchinson, who, as we've been saying, has had a very impressive season in GT4, another impressive weekend here, drops back behind Enzo Guibert, and that BMW very nicely suited to this circuit, because we've seen how well this car has gone, and also until it had engine maladies earlier on in race 1 of the weekend, the Ecris car that had Julien Piguet at the wheel of it. So Guibert then in a hurry. Look behind, Thomas Drouet. What can he do? Thomas Drouet there closing up a little bit in the red Naka ASP Mercedes, and you're on board with the young French driver into turn 14.
Well, this young French driver's doing a very good job indeed for his team, because in the last lap at least he's been the best part of 2 seconds quicker than the 4th place BMW, and a further half a second quicker than the 3rd place Guibert in the BMW.
That's right. So Enzo Guibert presses on as there. Constantine are under braking for turn 1. So Guibert, Hutchinson coming back at him under braking and taking Drouet with him. And then Stephen Pallet is next in the queue, lapping quicker than these three ahead of him because they're all busy squabbling. Look at the way the nose drops there as Pierre Sonsenena hits the brakes. The gap is creeping up, isn't it? Half a second gained by the Alpine over the Audi last time.
Yeah, just watching the Alpine under braking, you can imagine it's probably one of the most lightly sprung GT4 cars in the field. A lot of dip under braking, a lot of dive is the technical term. But whatever it is, the balance, the mechanical balance, not a big aero effect of these GT4 cars, not as anywhere near that of a GT3 car, so very much more of a mechanical. The importance of getting the mechanics right in the car may be more beneficial than just slapping on a whole load of front or rear downforce.
That's Matt George, who is 10th in the Aston Martin, taking it over from James Holder. Wriggling his way down to the midsection of the lap, down to turn 8. And he swings through the tight right hand of the Generation AMR Super Racing car. Reinhard Koff is still pressing on in the KTM just up the road ahead.
The Aston Martin looks again to have a good balance, whether the level of grip is high or not, but certainly the balance of the car looks as if the driver, Matt George, is able to use what he has got to go on board with the 88 Mercedes in its pursuit. That time, this last lap through, not quite as impressive as it was on the previous one. Again, having to really work the steering wheel and the throttle to keep the car balanced and grip levels into turn 13. Will be fractionally quicker than the McLaren ahead of him. So as he gets closer to this battle, going on for third place, the job of catching and overtaking becomes a little bit more tricky because you've got to contend with two cars battling, not just one car.
Car 88, Thomas Drouet, out of the right hand from turn 14 up towards the timing line once again, up through the gears, speed building all the time. Just stretching his fingers there, takes them off, what did he call it, the tiller, as he goes now past the pits down towards turn 1. The leading gap is 2.6 seconds incidentally. Sonsenena now is pulling well clear of Muller Madsen.
Yeah, pretty much a clear track ahead of him. He can use whatever part of the racetrack he wants and he can drive with the precision that little Alpine would probably demand of its drivers. It's not a big heavy car where you might want to throw it around. It's a much more nimble and precise machine and responds to that kind of driving style.
So after exclusion from an earlier race, it looks like the weekend is going to end well for the CMR team. It leads the way and the gap is increasing all the time. Thomas Drouet working very, very hard indeed there, way up the curb, coming out of the right-hander.
Yeah, he's having, well, we saw Policon doing the same thing, having to saw away at the steering. I mean, that is not what I normally expect to see from the cockpit of a Mercedes AMG GT3. And of course, this is the Group 4 version. It doesn't have the level of downforce that the Group 3 car, the GT3 car's got, so maybe that's the difference. The downforce really is the telling element in the GT3 version.
Fights the car out of turn 9 through the sharper left of 10, past the Oasis pits on the right-hand side, over what looks like the start line. There is a start area there with all the grid markers and the timing line put into place for another configuration of the circuit. Multi-purpose, multi-configuration. The BIC, Bahrain International Circuit, out of turn 11 now. Up goes Mercedes, bit of correction needed by Drouet. Scratch the nose.
I was going to say, you don't often see that on a race car, do you? The driver taking his hand off the wheel to scratch his nose, but if you got an itch, you got to scratch it.
Just ask the man in the iron mask. Coming then out of turn 13, Thomas Drouet. Whoops, a bit more correction needed. This Mercedes is getting ever more leery.
And the more it gets, the worse it's going to become. You know, if you're looking at a marathon runner, David, you run marathons or half marathons or whatever. If you ever get into oxygen debt, the only thing you can do is stop. The same if you start abusing tyres and the tyre hasn't got any more grip in it. If you push and push and push, you're only going to make the thing deteriorate. So sometimes you might just be a little bit more thoughtful, back off earlier. Don't put the big loads into the car on the initial inputs on the steering or on the throttle, and maybe you will recover a little bit of the grip that you think you've lost.
So Thomas Drouet dropping away, as there, diving up the inside is Stephen Pallet. He's going to relieve Drouet of the place. Easily done on the inside line. That's a change for fifth. Stephen Pallet goes through. Thomas Drouet then, with 15 minutes still to run, falls back into sixth place. And yes, we know that Pallet is quick, but it does underline John's point about the grip just going away on that Mercedes.
Yeah, I mean, you're in a situation where the harder you push, the worse you make the situation. So all I would do, I was in the situation of controlling this car, would be to say back off earlier, roll into the corner, do everything with less effort, so as you don't just maintain the problem, which is a deterioration of grip.
There's Stephen Palette bouncing up the curb. He, John made the point earlier, has been one of the stars of GT4 this weekend. Compromised in race 2. He led his stint from beginning to end, and then his co-driver spun on his outlet, but Stephen Palette has done a very good job, and he is the quicker in that Pro-Am car, and he's now catching up to Finlay Hutchison. 4th place. His last lap was 2 minutes 13. So at the moment, Palette is lapping quicker than anybody ahead of him.
I think Palette needs to be careful. I watched as he came up to the entry into turn 9. He was using a lot of what I would call non-racetrack. He was making the entrance into turn 9 a little bit wider than most others around him. So if he continues to do that, he might get notification of track limits, and you wouldn't want to spoil a great drive with maybe being a little bit greedy in 1 or 2 parts of the racetrack.
Fair point, as the number 41 goes through. Stephen Palette, 250, which is now Brett Strong being warned about track limits. That's Finlay Hutchison, currently 4th. What have we got? 13 and 3/4 minutes to go. And look at the way that Stephen Palette has reeled him in. I mean, he's absolutely charging.
He's flying. I mean, that car is running in 2 minutes 13.7.26 on that last lap. By far and away the quickest lap, as you pointed out, David, of anybody else right now. And there is 41 Audi. He was 1/10 of a second behind the McLaren. And the usual story, you catch, but can you pass? McLaren has been quick all weekend in the straight line. If you're quick off turn 14, you carry that momentum all the way down the straight. The pass should be relatively easy, but if you lose the momentum, then it'll become more difficult. Look how wide he goes on the entry into turn 1. And that's permissible because it's only 2 wheels off the racetrack.
And also look how Thomas Drouet is falling away in the Mercedes. So Stephen Palette here going for 4th. Could he get up to 3rd by the end? I think Guibert's pace might just be elusive, but we'll see, because first of all he's going to try and find a way past that McLaren, and Finlay Hutchison, as we have seen, knows how to defend. He's not going to give up 4th place without a real fight here, with 12.5 minutes still on the clock. Pierre Sonsinena, however, 3.3 seconds clear, and said the Phoenix Audi that looked so dominant in the 2 qualifying races has caught a cold in the final.
Watch what's happening, watch, oh, he's way off the racetrack. Oh dear me.
Well, that gains him an advantage for turn 8, doesn't it?
Well, it gave him an advantage in track position, because he was able, you could see how much quicker he was than Finlay Hutchison in the McLaren. It's up here I'm worried about how wide he goes. He's almost, not that time, maybe in earlier laps, getting all 4 wheels over the demarcation white line. So, and even the pass that he made coming on the exit of 17, he had pretty much all 4 wheels off the racetrack. But let's have a look and see if he go through turn 6. This is the downhill. Look how much quicker he is on the exit, but look how wide he goes. And he's, well, that's going to be looked at.
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil a great drive by a driver who's overtaking racing cars, but if you're gaining an advantage, that's something that this team might say, well, you used more than what was fair.
Yeah, exactly. That then propelled you to keep up the momentum, to braking down the inside. Discuss. I think it was all 4 wheels off, but it was marginal, isn't it? Yes, it might be looked at. However,
He's been consistent in doing it.
yeah, Stephen Palette is ahead, and now released. He's going after Enzo Guibert for 3rd place. Down towards turn 14 they come. So Sonsinena it is that leads the way still from Muller Manson. It's Alpine ahead of Audi, ahead of BMW, ahead of Audi, ahead of McLaren, ahead of Mercedes. Just to underline the variety. In Silver Cup, Sonsinena and Pierre-Alexandre Jean lead. In Pro-Am is the BMW of Enzo Guibert and Gilles Vannelet. And in the AM Cup it is Brett Strom and Darren Jorgensen, the Americans, coming good in the final.
Absolutely, I'm very pleased indeed for them, because double AM drivers, it's not easy when you get the quality of driver we have here this weekend, but they've kept their nose clean, they've kept out of trouble. They've got the little crossbow coming up behind them, but that's not in their race.
And they also have problems and retired early from race 2, so they bounce back in style as Gauchier Rodest now fends off Matt George. This is for 9th and 10th places. Stephen Palette must give back 1 position in the next lap for overtaking via track limit abuse.
Who saw it first then?
There you go. 41 must give back 1 position in the next lap, overtaking out of track is the way it's phrased.
And he's done so. Well, yes, he's done so. So again, will he do the same trick he tried and succeeded with doing? No, he's going to be more circumspect, but dives down the inside into turn 8. Gets alongside, this time the pass clean and fair, no argument whatsoever, but the process has cost Palette maybe 3 or 4 seconds in his pursuit of what would be the 3rd place Guibert BMW, and that will be a frustration, but that's the price you pay.
They sprint their way out of turn 10. So Stephen Palette now back up into that 4th place, did exactly the right thing, didn't argue about it. The team told him, give back the place, he did, and retakes it once more. So knew he could do it, but the race director, having had a look at it, decides that, yeah, the place must be returned. So Stephen Palette gave it back and retakes it fairly.
And what was very important for me is Palette responded immediately to the command from the pits, let the McLaren get ahead, and immediately pounced almost at the same part of racetrack, 1 lap area, and made that. So smart thinking from the team, but also smart thinking from Stephen Palette to do so.
Yeah, because if you let him by the part of the circuit, you know you're strong, you can instantly be on your toes and retaliate, can't you? Into the last 9 minutes of the race now, this GT4 International Cup. The lead gap is extending, and actually Finlay Hutchison doesn't like looking at the back of that Audi. It's closed back up again under braking for turn 14, all of which distracts Palette from his chance to get onto turn with Enzo Guibert for 3rd place.
I think Palette's just got the raw pace.
Yeah.
The McLaren did close down a little bit coming into turn 14, but the pace of 14, a little bit more bite, but a little more traction for the Audi. The McLaren has got the slight straight line speed advantage, but once you get down into turn 1, and that's the tight right, then you've got a slightly less tight left and another opening right through turn 3, and then the run up to turn 4. So I don't think Stephen Palette really is going to be under any threat whatsoever from what is now the 5th place McLaren.
There's Gaucher Rodest still hanging on to 9th place ahead of Matt George, and the Aston Martin inching up onto the back of the bright yellow Audi. 8 minutes are on the clock still. Stephen Palette still being told he's got to give back that 1 place, but he's done it. He's taken the penalty and he's got the place, so quickly was it done. He's got on with the job, running 4th once again. Now there, Matt George closing up under braking at turn 4, ready to accelerate through the 5, 6, 7 long S sequence all the way down to the sharp right of turn 8.
You can just see how cherry red the front discs on the Aston Martin were glowing there. I dread to think what the temperature is. Think of the fluids and the pad material that's going to cope with all that for the duration of a 1 hour race. Again, a lot of heavy braking because these cars are low downforce cars. The way they slow the car down is principally on the brakes, whereas high downforce cars use the aerodynamics to contribute to the braking. We're back to our race leader, 4.2 seconds advantage over the 2nd place, Nikolai Müller-Molsten in the Audi.
So there he is, that's the 2nd place car. Müller-Madsen 5.5 seconds clear of Enzo Guibert, and of course the Silver Cup class car that. So behind it is now Anthony Hodson's delayed Maserati. That's fallen back, of course, after the contact in 14th place, which is now last, because it's been quite a high mortality rate in this race. Of course, quite a few through mechanical woes or damage or both. So there's Enzo Guibert 3rd. Got 6 3/4 minutes on the clock still through turn 14. He comes.
You have to think that he's pretty secure. Having said that, the pace that Palette has been managing to achieve, there he is just coming into view, and he's managed to break whatever the toe might have been between himself and the McLaren. So Finlay Hutchison has got to resign himself to the fact that he's got nothing left in the tank to challenge for that 5th place, and all he can do is watch the Audi just pull further away each lap.
Down towards turn 1 goes Stephen Palette, and Finlay Hutchison on target for 5th. Now, not only is Palette trying to catch Enzo Guibert for 3rd, it's also for the Pro-Am win. And right now the gap is 4.3 seconds, and Guibert is fractionally the faster. So the BMW looking safe, Guibert and Vanelay. A drive-through penalty for Stephen Palette for overtaking outside track limits. Now, we saw him do it once, and he gave the place back and retook it, and that 2nd move looked fair.
Well, and to me it looked fair. He did make the move down the inside into turn 8, where previously the pass had been made around the outside of turn 7 on the run to turn 8. So what we saw, I thought, was a clean and fair overtake. I don't know what this might refer to. Let's hope it is can be reviewed before the penalty has to be served.
Well, normally if it goes on the timing screen, that
should be served. I agree.
Company, yeah.
But I'm not entirely sure what the penalty is about.
I mean, the fact that there's still been that message about giving the place back makes me think that somebody has missed the fact that he did give the place back and retook it. And this is a penalty for not giving the place back, if you're with me.
I'm absolutely with you.
And if that's the case, then that would be very, very disappointing, to say the least, for all concerned. Anyway, that's the penalty that's there. Now, whether the Sansalot team can go and argue it, well, I don't know, but what we saw didn't seem to be contentious at all that time around.
I'm assuming what the team will do is we will argue the case when the race is over, we're with 4 minutes from this race finishing, you're fully entitled to go up and ask for further and fuller details of the reason why you're being asked to serve another penalty.
Well, there's the car in question. It's Stephen Pallat at the wheel of it. So down towards the right hand of turn 14. But as I say, normally if the penalty is there, it's a done deal, and Stephen Pallat is not coming in this time.
And I don't imagine he will come in until the checkered flag falls, unless the team have had clarification as to what he is alleged to have done.
He's getting away from Finlay Hutchison and is a little nearer to Enzo Guibert. But as the race draws to a close into the last 4 minutes, it would be a real shame if we ended up with the car being excluded for not taking the penalty, or taking the penalty and then it being an erroneous one, which compromises you again. So it's a odd situation. There at Saint-Loc, Fabien Michel discussing life with the rest of the team. And so Michel Blanchimont, that did the first stint in the sister car, looking frustrated. Fabien Michel never got to really do anything in this race. That car a retirement on the opening lap. And Fabien Michel consoles Michel Blanchimont. There's Pallat.
Again, he's running way. I mean, you'd have thought with a warning you might be a little bit more thoughtful about how much of the racetrack you're using. Again, that approach into turn 9, the car is the widest of all the cars we are seeing, with what, just under 3 minutes remaining.
Well, still the penalty is on the screen. Still Pallat carries on, and unless there's been another overtaking manoeuvre that he has done outside of track limits, which we've not seen, I'm still slightly puzzled by this.
Yeah, well, when he made when he gave back the position, he gave it back, but was back onto the back of the McLaren like a rat of a drain pipe, and sort of maybe caught Finlay Hutchison slightly unawares with that move, being quicker through turn 7 down into turn 8. Once he got alongside the McLaren into turn 8, I didn't see anything that I would consider to be overtaking outside track limits. But there are other images and views that the stewards will have to look at and to make their assessment before they would hand down any instruction for a drive-through penalty.
So the leader goes by. What are we going to get? One more lap out of this race, aren't we now? Because there's less than a lap time left in the race. A flying lap of 2 minutes 14 at the moment. Sonsinena leading by 6 seconds from Nicolai Müller-Madsen. Enzo Guibert is third, and there fourth on the road is Stephen Pallat. He's not coming in for this drive-through, is he? He's determined to get to the end, so he'll take the checkered flag and they're going to fight it out afterwards.
Yes, and I mean, if I was in that situation, I think that would be my view as well, whether it's a right view to take or not. But if there is uncertainty within the team as to what it is he's being penalised for, if you make the drive-through and you suffer, and then there's been a review and it was an error, well, that doesn't help the team.
The trouble with instant justice, I mean, it's good that you have penalties applied in the race so you know what the real situation is. It's not a result that changes 3 weeks later, but equally, if they're the wrong call, it can be troublesome for the teams. However, the stewards have all the evidence, and they've got the track cameras as well as these pictures that you're looking at, so there's more to the backstory, I'm sure. Well, Greg Masters and his team will be making certain they've done the right thing.
Oh, absolutely, and it's imperative that the right decisions are reached.
But what about this car? It's had trouble with the gearbox in qualifying and a puncture, and a bit of a scuffle between the team and a scrutineer. It's had a disqualification, and it's had some excellent driving by Pierre Sonsinena and Pierre-Alexandre Jean, and the Alpine is now set to be a race winner.
I think it is the cutest little thing in four-wheelers I've seen in GT racing. I can't remember in how long. It reminds me of what drew me into motor racing as a child, looking at small capacity, physically small GT cars battling with the dinosaurs of the day back in the 50s, and that's what that reminds me of when I was an 8 or 9 year old child.
It's a pretty car, it's a quick car, and it comes now out of turn 14. Checkered flag at the ready. It's time to perfection. This look, 3 seconds, 2, 1. There is the flag, and the GT4 International Cup is going to be won by the Alpine of Pierre-Alexandre Jean and Pierre Sonsinena. Audi will take second. Nicolai Müller-Madsen and Milan Doncia. And third on the road, Enzo Guibert and Gilles Vanelay in the BMW. Fourth behind them, Stephen Palette and Michel Blanchimont. Discuss. Fifth is going to go the way of Finlay Hutchison and Matt Nicholl-Jones, and sixth to Thomas Drouet and Jérôme Policon. Well, we've had some great racing, including seventh, by the way, the KTM, Reinhard Köffler, Konstantin Schürrle from the back and with a drive-through. And
constantly amongst the quickest cars on the racetrack. Just imagine where that car potentially could have finished had they not all the travails that the car had to contend with.
There, Matt George brings in 10th place the Generation AMR Super Racing entry home.
So the BMW comes across the line and it finishes as the winner of the category in 11th position. Their target has been achieved. They'll be happy indeed with that. And now just waiting for the Primus Racing, the 51, to come across the line. There is our race winner creeping back, running on the dirtier part of the racetrack, as you point out, David, frequently, to any rubber that is there, and there'll be tons of it, make no mistake. So just a little bit of build up, and maybe an adder, maybe up to a kilogram or more.
Now let's, as the winning car heads to Parc Fermé, have a look at the two overtakes from Stephen Palette. So this was the one that got him into strife. Now have a look, he runs wide, he goes off the road, maintains the momentum, and there's the move going down towards turn 8. So that, say the officials,
absolutely,
is a foul.
Correct.
Then for the second one,
I don't see anything here that would indicate that there was anything wrong. Always on the racetrack, didn't even run the curb on the inside. From where we're sitting in the commentary booth now, as you point out, David, there are many other views of all these incidents, so we're only judging by what we can see from the feed that we're getting in the commentary booth.
Now, unless you've been off the road earlier on the lap to gain momentum, but that's not an overtake. The overtake is what we've just seen, and that
the notice said the overtake, didn't say
indeed.
Off the track.
Off the track limits abuse, no, precisely. Right, well, discuss. You can follow all this at the GT4 European Series website, where there's the news from this weekend, and the Twitter feed as well, just in case things change post-race. The cars now come into the Oasis pits, but then the winning drivers will be swiftly allowed through, and the class winners around the lap, in fact, to the Formula 1 pit lane. So you've got the Silver Cup, Pro-Am and Am victors.
Yeah, so they're going to make their way around to the, you might call it the formal pit lane.
At the front door.
Isn't it? I tell you what.
I want one.
If that was a puppy, I would buy it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I understand that there are a lot of orders in the UK for that car. It was a very popular thing going up the hill at Goodwood in the summer, and the press fleet stacked out with requests for people to test drive it. So it's had great reviews.
Yeah. And what was the leading class, the car that led the class in terms of GT, handling, fun, performance, it's eclipsed some of those.
And there's a one-make series for these in France. We saw it at the Blancpain weekend at Paul Ricard, didn't we, in the summer? So grids burgeoning of pure Alpines for the one-make series, but this is the Pucker GT4 car, and after a really tough weekend with problems, setbacks, disqualifications, damage, punctures, you name it, the CMR team has come good, and to win the GT4 International Cup, Pierre Sonsinena and Pierre-Alexandre Jean.
David, here's the hard question. Would you sell your regular daily drive for a new Alpine?
That is
a toughie. That's a toughie.
Tough question. I would like one of those as well. So let's confirm the way they came across the line. Pierre Sonsinena and Pierre-Alexandre Jean, the race winners, from Nikolai Müller-Madsen and Milan Doncha. Enzo Guibert, Gilles Vanelay taking third ahead of Matt Nicholl-Jones and Finlay Hutchison, classified fourth because that graphic has already taken out Stephen Palette, who was fourth over the line. So I fear an exclusion has just come for the Audi, but we'll come back to that when we have confirmation. Behind the McLaren was the Jérôme Policon Thomas Drouet Mercedes, then the KTM ahead of Dan Wells and the Philippe Kaduri BMW, and to round out the first page of the results, the Gouchard Redest and Max Hesse Audi. Then came James Holder and Matt George in the Aston Martin, the next of the Santalok Junior team cars through behind. And so there is the celebration beginning for the 3 category winners that we will have for the podium down in the F1 pits. And they can't really open the door, but it's a good job racing drivers are skinny things these days, because there Pierre Sonsenena squeezes out of the car, cheers and embraces the team. Great drive by both him and Pierre-Alexandre Jean.
You know, if I'd been Nicola Mullen-Madston, I would have parked my Audi so tight to the driver's door of the Alpine just to say, congratulations, mate. Of course, Mini couldn't get out of the car unless he crawled across to the passenger's door, which is not entirely easy in a GT4 car. There's a lot of gubbins in the cockpit. That would be a mean thing, I know, to do. But wouldn't you have a little laugh if you were in the second place Audi?
Well, Milan Doncher and Nikolai Muller-Madsen not overly happy about that result, but surprised, I think, that they couldn't do anything about getting on terms with the race winners. But let's hear from the victors, Pierre Sonsenena and Pierre-Alexandre Jean.
Pierre-Alexandre Jean, you looked pretty happy when your car came into Parc Fermé. Victory, and it was very hard fought.
Oh yeah, I think it's the best sensation I ever had. You know, world champion is mean a big thing. The team worked a lot all the season, and yeah, I think it's all the job we did all the season, and we concrete today, and it's perfect. You know.
But also, you came up through the field to make it even more interesting.
Oh yeah, the start was very close. You know, at the exit of turn 1, the Ginetta had some oversteer. I nearly hit the Ginetta, and 20 centimeters it passed, and I think God was with us today, and yeah, it's amazing, you know.
Okay, great results, and Pierre, the gold for you. Brilliant finish to the race, Pierre Sonsenena.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was just amazing, crazy race. I knew that I had to push hard at the beginning. I didn't expect to be first at the exit of the pit lane, but yeah, we did an amazing job. Guys over there worked all night long. They are gold, and this victory is for us and for everybody that supports us. Thank you very much.
Treat the mechanics well, take them to a party.
Exactly. I think tonight will be nice.
And in all the drama and all the excitement of everything else going on, let's just recap the fact that that car started way back on the 9th row of the grid. The car started from 18th on that grid, so a great drive through the field. So the drivers then celebrate. They'll go to the podium very shortly, and we will have a quick look at the highlights of what was an all-action GT4 International Cup main race. It was a busy grid of cars that was getting set to go racing, with Gilles Vandelet looking for honours, and he came out on top in the end in Pro-Am. Jerome Policon in the Mercedes. Fabien Michel didn't get very far, sadly, with his Audi, retiring on the opening lap of the race, which, as it blasted away, had from pole position there, making a decent start, Milan Doncher. He was outdragged initially by Matt Nicol-Jones, but the battle was not done. And also this car, which had been on the grid with a mechanic at the 1 minute mark, the KTM of Constantin Schürrle, was given a drive-through penalty later in the stint. It was all action up at the front. Doncher put himself into the lead of the race, ahead of Matt Nicol-Jones. As further down the order, the battered Ginetta of Peter Larson got stuck in against the Mercedes of Eric Behrens and Stephen Patrick. Jerome Policon was also trying to gain places. The cars thundered their way down towards turn 1, as Policon then came under pressure from Max Hesse. They threaded their way over the timing line, with the pit window looming. There was an early safety car period, however, to get Andrew Danilew's Porsche out of harm's way. That bunched up the field. It gave Matt Nicol-Jones another chance to attack Doncher, but the car again dropped back as we approached the pit window. Up and down the order, battles raged on. The Maserati in the hands of Piotr Kodzin in the first stint had got embroiled with Stephen Patrick's Mercedes. This was the reason for the safety car. The Porsche coming to a halt, coming out of turn 13. And Murphy's Law said that as soon as the safety car was called, the Porsche fired into life and was able to be moved a little further out of harm's way. So, racing we went once more. Eric Behrens ran wide down at turn 1. That enabled the Ginetta, Peter Larson, to squeeze round on the outside line. But then Stephen Patrick was assaulted by the Maserati, and with broken suspensions, the car did not want to go left. It only wanted to turn right on the power, and that delayed and battered the Maserati yet further. Mercedes was out. The Maserati came in for its mandatory pit stop, but Piotr Chodzen was not amused. More pit stops. In came Milan Donjan to give way to Nikolai Muller-Madsen. They cycled through as the number 36 Alpine got itself into the lead of the race for a lap, and it was ahead 2 after the pit stops. Pierre Sonsinena then started to pull clear. He was just out ahead, and after that the lead continued to build. So the GT4 International Cup here in Bahrain, won by Pierre-Alexandre Jean and Pierre Sonsinena at the end of a great weekend of racing for the GT4 cars in the desert from John Watson and David Anderson. It's goodbye from Bahrain.